means will be for Q&A, question and answers. And we urge our members or those who are attending this webinar to ask their questions in the Q&A instead of putting them in the chats. This webinar is will attract CPD points, about 3 of them, and they'll be credited to your ChemHTB portal in the next 24 hours. So today's webinar will be on compliance versus competency in clinical laboratories. And our speaker is one of our own, who is Davis Wanjala Wekesa. Davis currently works with Saba Lancet Africa or Saba Lancet Kenya, and he's based at Kericho. He is the lab manager in the Kericho branch. So, Davis, are you able to hear me? Davis, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, bro.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Davis, and you can take the mic.
Thank you very much, Bruce, for that introduction. For those who might have missed out, my name is Wekesa Davis, and I work with Saba Lancet Kenya Limited, based in Kericho, but I oversee company interests in Kericho and Bomet counties. Our today's topic of discussion is about compliance and competency in clinical laboratories, where we, through the discussion we are going to have today, we look into an in-depth understanding of what compliance is and an in-depth understanding of what competency actually stands for. And we look at the applicability of these two concepts in our daily work. So, as a laboratory technologist or as a lab personnel, the biggest question that actually ever lies in your mind is, right now with the era of ISO 15189 of GCLB, is it compliance or is it competence? Is it compliance or competence? What takes precedence over the other? And we'll have a definite answer to that discussion as we continue. Of course, through this discussion, we are going to be basing on the outline that I've shared under there. We are going to define what compliance is, and we have a definition of what competency is. Then we look at the differences between compliance and competency. Then we explain, we have a vivid explanation regarding the relevance of compliance and the relevance of competency in our daily clinical work. Then we also we seek to recognize the interrelationship that exists between these two concepts, the concept of compliance and the concept of competency. Then we look at the possible areas of application. Where does compliance really fit in and where does competency really fit in? Okay. And finally, we look at enhancing a commitment in form of fostering these two concepts, because these are concepts that we will come to find out whether or not they can exist independently or they must coexist in these aspects of discussion. So as a clinical laboratory, our key role is actually to generate accurate and reliable results, accurate, quality, and reliable results, because these accurate, quality, and reliable results come in handy in guiding diagnosis, treatment, and patient management. In our daily work, our key purpose, our key existence is actually to ensure that we are generating accurate, reliable results, valid results, so that we get the right diagnosis, we get the right treatment, and we tailor our patient management to the results that we come across. So in the long run, we always look at it like laboratory quality services depend not only on the systems that we have in place, but also on the skills and professionalism of the personnel performing the work. Okay, it is not all about the systems that we have in place. We might have the most complex systems in place, but then if you do not have the personnel who are skilled enough and who are professional enough to discharge those duties, it becomes a problem. So it is a system that combines both the systems in place and the personnel at hand. And we are talking, when we refer to personnel, we are looking at the skills and the professionalism of those personnel. So when we are talking about laboratory quality, two pillars always come up. When you talk about laboratory quality or laboratory quality performance, two pillars come up. One is compliance and another one is competency. Okay, so in the subsequent slides, we shall be having an in-depth understanding of each of these as such. So we shall start with compliance. What does compliance really mean? What does compliance really mean? Of course, compliance in the context of laboratory work is adhering to established requirements, standards, laws, or procedures. We have requirements as a lab. We have established requirements as a lab. We have established standards as a lab. We have established laws that govern lab operations in the country. And we have established procedures, the standard operating procedures that guide our operations as such. So when we talk of compliance, we are talking of the art of adhering, making sure that whatever is needed is actually done. That is compliance. Okay? So in ISO 15189 and GCLP, compliance ensures that the laboratory actually follows all documented policies, standard operating procedures, and regulatory standards. Okay, there are documented procedures, there are standard operating procedures, and regulatory standards. So compliance actually means the lab follows those documented procedures to the letter without even missing one aspect at hand. So when we talk of compliance, the key points that drive compliance is compliance, number one, focuses on meeting defined requirements. It's purely about defined requirements, because when you talk of defined requirements, we can give an examples of ISO 15189 clauses. It defines what is needed. The GCLP guidelines, it defines what is needed. The legal and ethical mandates, they are clearly defined. And now, compliance actually focuses on meeting these predefined requirements. Number two, compliance demonstrates conformity. Compliance demonstrates conformity, doing things right. When you talk of compliance, we are saying when you are compliant, it means you are conforming to the requirements. Okay, you are adhering to the established regulations, so it means you are doing things right. All right. Number three, compliance is auditable. That means that compliance is actually verified or can be verified during audits or inspections. When you do audits, when you do inspections, what you are actually looking at is compliance, okay? Are you meeting the minimum requirement? Yes, you are compliant, okay? It's actually auditable in its way. Okay. Number four, we look at compliance can actually be maintained without necessarily improving performance. That is one key aspect that if you are keen enough, you should know that if at all you treat compliance as checkbox activity, you just say, oh, this SOP, yes, we have. Staff's compliant, yes, you tick. You get that. If it's not controlled, you find yourself actually, you have maintained compliance, but it might not necessarily mean that it will improve performance. That is one aspect that we need to be keen as laboratory personnel. Compliance in its own does not actually translate to performance improvement. Okay? If it is treated as a checkbox activity, if your work is just to go to a temperature monitoring, in fact, without seeing what is there, you just tick. Your IQC is passing, you tick. What is this? You tick, you tick, you tick, without actually questioning what is behind that tick. It might not actually improve performance itself. You might find yourself that yes, you are compliant, but your performance is queried. That is when, in the case that you have treated compliance as a checkbox activity, okay? So examples of compliance areas. You look at it in terms of you are following SOPs exactly as they are written. Yes, you are compliant. You are maintaining calibration and quality control records. Yes, you are compliant. You are ensuring confidentiality and impartiality in your work areas. Yes, you are compliant. You are documenting results by GCLP, data recording, reporting, and data integrity section. Yes, you are doing well, okay? You are compliant. But then the question now comes, is your compliance controlled or uncontrolled kind of compliance? So quickly, we look at the visual concept of the framework of compliance. Of course, I've just mentioned that compliance is basically ensuring that you are adhering to the set standards, to the set rules, to the set laws, or to the set regulations. So on top of it all, we have compliance. And it's looked at in terms of our laboratory framework, compliance in terms of our laboratory framework. In our laboratory framework or areas of engagements, we have SOPs or procedures, how to work. They tell us how to work. We have legal standards, which actually tells us what to follow, and quality policies that tell us why we should follow something. Of course, when you find yourself in this context, by the mere fact that you are adhering to this either SOPs or procedures, legal standards, or quality policies, you are already compliant. Unfortunately, most of our auditors, most of our audit system actually looks at compliance rather than competence. And that is now a gray area of discussion that we need to factor in out and look at it keenly. That in our audits, in our inspections, we should be moving beyond compliance. We should be actually focused on the competency aspects of this. So once you have complied to the SOP or procedures, you have complied to the legal standards, what to follow, and quality procedures, it is assumed that you will have consistent practices, you will have documented practices, and your records will actually be traceable. And if you have been keen enough, I actually mentioned that being compliant does not necessarily mean or does not necessarily refer to performance improvement. Being compliant, if it's uncontrolled compliance, unchecked compliance, it might translate to an improvement when it comes to performance. But if your compliance is properly checked, your compliance is properly controlled, you actually go an extra mile beyond the compliance, it will actually transform to performance improvement. But if it's not checked, it might not just go well down to you. So under the visual conceptual framework, we are just saying, do you follow SOPs? Yes. If you follow SOPs, do you record your data? Yes, we record. Do you verify your results? Yes. Do you retain documents? Yes. Just like that, you are compliant. Without asking any more questions about that, we are saying, do you meet the basic minimum requirements as directed? Yes. So you are compliant. Okay. So we look at compliance being an equivalence of the framework that ensures every action in the lab is standardized, traceable, and defensible. Because we are just looking at it. Yes, the policy says data storage. Have you stored your data? Yes. Show us where you have stored your data. You show us. You are compliant. Okay. Or how do you store your data? We put it in a file, we put it on a disk, we put it on cloud or something of that. So yes, is there any evidence? Yes. Is it documented? Yes, you are compliant. Basically, that is the simplest way of looking at compliance. And actually, compliance is a framework that ensures every action in the laboratory is standardized, traceable, and defensible. Because if you look at the pictorial representation there, we have, for example, a list of things that you need to adhere to. So the question is, have you adhered to them or not? So if you have adhered to them, is a tick, you are compliant. If you have not adhered to them, it's a finding or it's an area of improvement. It's a query that has been raised. So it's either you have adhered or you have not adhered. At the end of the day, that is how simple compliance is as such. So what is the purpose of compliance? Compliance is actually always aimed at maintaining standardization, consistency, and traceability on all laboratory processes. Number two, it serves to ensure that the laboratory can demonstrate accountability and reliability through documentation. Because the basic fact behind compliance is there must be documentation. There must be evidence of documentation. So through that process, as you try to justify through documentation, you are enhancing compliance as such. And number three, it serves the purpose to protect patients and uphold the credibility of the results. But that I leave it with a question, because compliance on its own does not actually mean that the results will be credible. We'll have a discussion about that when we are looking at, you will have a better understanding of that when we look at competency as a core aspect. So in simple terms, we are saying compliance refers to doing what is required and proving it, okay? The standard says you must have a quality manual, for example. The very first question from a person looking or inspecting your documents would be, do you have a quality manual? Yes. Do you have evidence of its existence? Yes, show me, period. You are compliant, okay? So it's just a matter of doing what is required and proving it. Or in short, compliance is following rules, okay? You are told that in the morning when you come, you clock in, you just arrive at work and you clock in, okay? The how behind how you clocked in, that is up to them. But you are compliant because you clocked in. The law states that for you to be a certified medical laboratory officer or technologist or technician, it says that you must complete your diploma or your certificate or your degree. Once you have completed that, you are supposed to register with the board, you are supposed to sit for the exam, and then you are supposed to get a practicing license, okay? So by mere fact that you have gone through that processes and you have a practicing license, it deems you compliant. You are compliant. Those are rules. Those are policies that have been put in place, okay? If, for example, you have a commitment to impartiality as a lab, you have, the policy only says the lab must demonstrate aspects of impartiality, okay? So you as a lab, you have an impartiality policy, you are compliant. Whether we can justify what is behind that policy is a separate story. But by the mere fact that you have a policy and staffs have acknowledged that policy, you are compliant. So compliance in its essence can just be termed as following the rules, following the set rules, adhering to the rules that have been put in place. So compliance can actually be evaluated and can be monitored, okay? Compliance can actually be evaluated and can be monitored. Compliance is evaluated and monitored through combination of structured quality assurance activities designed to ensure that laboratory operations, documentation, and staff practices adhere to approved standards, procedures, and regulations, okay? So it is possible to evaluate and monitor compliance. And of course, in subsequent slides, you just come across the various ways in which compliance can be evaluated and monitored as such. And these are the ways. How do we monitor and evaluate compliance? Number one, we look at compliance in terms of through internal audits. Of course, when we have internal audits, we are saying that internal audits are conducted periodically to assess conformity to SOPs, GCLP, and ISO 15189 requirements, okay? So Through internal audits, we are able to identify non-conformities, we are able to identify gaps, and we are able to identify opportunities for improvement. When we look at our systems, it's a cross-check aspect. We are asking ourselves, do we have conformance to SOPs? Do we have conformance to GCLP standards? Do we have conformance to the standard requirements? Okay, so that is one way in which we can actually evaluate or monitor compliance. Number two, we can have a compliance evaluated through external audits and accreditation assessments. And this is where actually most of us are based in. We talk of external audits and accreditation assessments are actually performed by external bodies, the likes of KENAS or regulatory inspectors. For example, with regulatory inspectors, I'm referring to people like the KMLTTB inspectors when they come to cross-check your functionality as a lab, or for example, the OSHA compliance review. Okay, so when these external bodies come in, they come to verify that the lab actually maintains compliance with national and international standards. Okay, where they are basically, majorly, the questions are, do you meet the minimum requirements? Do you meet the minimum requirements? If your SOP says so and so, is it being done? If the standard says so and so, is it being done? Yes. If the standard says so and so, is it being done? Yes. So through external audits and accreditation assessments, we are actually able to actually pinpoint whether compliance is being adhered to or not. Of course, also through supervisory and management reviews, through management reviews or supervisor reviews, we are able to routinely monitor compliance with protocols. Okay, routine monitoring by supervisors and QA officers, of course, on a daily basis, day-to-day operations, it assists in reviewing our compliance standards as such to protocols. Of course, through those reviews and supervisory checks, we get to get findings, and these findings are discussed in management review meetings for continual improvement. Okay, areas that we were not compliant, areas that we were not conforming to the requirements as stated or as stipulated, actually raises some areas of discussion, and those areas of discussions are what contribute to an aspect called continual improvement. Of course, compliance can also be reviewed or monitored or evaluated through document and records review. We have a regular check of our logs, our forms, our reports, and electronic systems to ensure that they conform to the activities as they have been scheduled in that aspect. Okay, so we are looking at, are all these activities correctly documented? Are they correctly traceable? And are they compliant with the data integrity principles? Very basic, at a very basic minimal level. Are you compliant or not? We just check what you have in place to ensure that, yes, it is actually as it's supposed to be. Okay. Of course, corrective and preventive actions, the CAPA, non-conformities identified during audits and incidents are tracked and corrected. Okay, preventive actions help mitigate recurrence and demonstrate commitment to ongoing compliance. So whenever a finding is raised during that audit, if that is an non-compliance, and an non-compliance must actually be successfully closed, and successful closure of an non-compliance comes through effective corrective actions and preventive actions that actually confirm that there is a commitment to ongoing compliance as such. So basically, until there, that marks a discussion that was centered across compliance as a topic in itself. And it actually, from that discussion, you can pinpoint out that compliance is all about following the laid down rules. Compliance is all about doing things right, okay? Doing things right, doing things as they have been prescribed to be done. If this SOP following SOPs, conform to following SOPs. If this policies, conform to the policies at the bare minimum, okay? Then we transition to competency. Competency basically means doing the job well. Doing the job well. Competency refers to demonstrated ability of laboratory personnel to perform the assigned task correctly, consistently, and independently. Competency refers to the demonstrated ability of laboratory personnel to perform assigned tasks correctly, consistently, and independently. So, of course, competency goes beyond compliance. It's not about just that tick you are put on. It's not about bare minimum anymore. Okay? Competency refers to the knowledge, the skills, your behavior, your attitude as a laboratory personnel. That you as a laboratory personnel demonstrate the skills, the knowledge about concepts, be it procedural aspect, be it legal aspects or law of matters, or the knowledge behind the policies that have been stipulated. So it's about the knowledge, your skills, your understanding, your behavior, your attitude, okay? And this is always based on how do you demonstrate your skills? How do you demonstrate your knowledge? How do you demonstrate your attitude? How do you demonstrate your behavior to perform assigned tasks accurately, safely, and consistently? There, colleagues, is where the difference comes in. With compliance, we are talking of meeting bare minimum, adhering to the rules. The rule says you must have SOPs on ABCD. Is the SOP in place? Yes, you are compliant. But then when it comes to competence, now we start now to digest the compliance aspect. Okay, we break the compliance aspects. Yes, we have the SOP. Have these staffs been trained on those SOPs? Do these staffs have the right skills to actually implement what the SOP says? Are these staffs, do they have the right knowledge to actually implement what the SOP is? Are those staffs actually have the right behavior and attitude to make sure that what is behind that SOP is actually implemented? So competency goes far and beyond the minimum requirement. It goes far and beyond compliance. It looks at you as an individual now, you as the person undertaking those responsibilities. How are you well fashioned? How is your attitude? How is your knowledge when it comes to relating to those aspects as such? So competency ensures that individuals not only follow procedures, but also understand and apply them correctly in practical situations. So it goes beyond compliance. It goes beyond following procedures, and it ensures that you as the personnel tasked with that responsibility, you actually understand, you actually can apply every aspect in your practical situations if you are based on that aspect. So basic examples that can just make us have a better understanding of what competence really means is correctly identifying samples and performing analysis without errors. You are competent. You can correctly identify samples using the protocols that have been put in place. Then you can actually go ahead and perform analysis of those patient samples without errors. You are proficient, you are competent, okay? You are able to interpret quality control results. Because with compliance, it only tells you that, for example, on point number 2, it tells you that IQC must be run and documented. So the question will be, how frequent do you do your IQC and how frequent do you document this IQC? But when you look at competency, it tells you as an individual, after you have run this IQC, after you have run this IQC, are you sufficiently equipped with the knowledge, the skills to actually interpret that IQC result? And are you able and skilled enough to take corrective actions that are necessary in case the outcome was not acceptable? Okay. Do you have the right skills and the right attitude, the right behavior to troubleshoot instrument errors? Do you have the right attitude, the right skills to ensure that you can maintain even proper communication and documentation? Okay. Do you have the slightest of the skills to make sure that you can understand the scientific principles behind each of the tests performed? That is competency. It goes beyond following rules. It goes beyond that tick box mindset. It goes beyond that tick you are putting on that paper. So what is the purpose of competence? We might have all this discussion, but at the end of the day, what is the purpose of competence? Competency serves to guarantee the accuracy, validity, and reproducibility of test results. You are going beyond compliance. It's not about just complying with the set SOPs, with the set standards as such. You are going beyond the set standards to make sure that, yes, I have the right skills, I have the right knowledge, I have the right attitude to actually make sure that I can guarantee accuracy and validity of results that I'm putting about. Okay? Of course, competency serve the purpose to reduce human error and improve overall laboratory performance. Through competence, we can actually reduce human error. Competency is individual or operator-centered, okay? Competency is operator-centered. You as the personnel behind that test, you as the personnel behind that SOP, you as the personnel behind that policy, how well equipped are you to make sure that you can actually perform or reproduce what is being undertaken there? Of course, finally, it also serves the purpose to support ongoing professional development and training. We shall be looking at that. In simple terms, competency is equivalent to having the ability to do it right, okay? Having the ability to do things right, having the ability to undertake a given procedure in the lab right. And it comes through training, retraining, and competence evaluation. So in the context, to actually contextualize what competency is all about is, competence, of course, asks these questions. It asks, and it is the answer to these questions. Does the staff member truly understand why they are doing what they are doing? So you have been tasked with the responsibility of, what is the simplest thing that I can refer to? The responsibility of temperature monitoring. You have been tasked with the responsibility of temperature monitoring. At a compliance level, it will be, is the temperature being monitored? Yes. Show as evidence. You remove the temperature logs. You have ticked them very clearly that, yes, this was done, or you have written that temperature aspect there. Compliance ends there. But then where compliance ends is where now competency picks up. Because if somebody tasks you, if you really understand the relevance or the weight behind that tick that you have put on that temperature log, does the staff member truly understand why they are doing what they are doing? Some of us, we just do things because we found other people doing them the way they are doing, okay? When you are asked, you say, oh, but so and so does this way. Okay, you do not really understand why they are doing it, what they are doing. Okay, so competency brings about understanding why things are happening the way they are happening. Number two, do they have the skill and the confidence to perform the task correctly under varying conditions? If the conditions were just varied, and when I'm saying varied conditions, for example, we are used to the routine way of doing things. But when we are having a discussion about laboratory resilience, we are looking at how do you adjust your processes based on the situation at hand. For example, in routine operations, everything is okay. Just a patient walks in, they need a given test, you do. In the event of system downtimes, do you have the skill and the confidence to perform that task the way you have been performing it routinely. Number two, it also asks you, under emergency situations, do you have the skill and the confidence to actually do that task, to undertake, to perform the task the same way you have been doing it routinely? Okay. Those are things that, because a skill is a skill, the confidence is confidence. It should not change when you do something routinely, and it shouldn't change when there's a surge. For example, when during the COVID times, so many operational changes were there. But then you ask yourself, why do you do something well when it's a routine aspect, but when it's under emergency aspects, your system crumbles? That is something that we should actually look at. Number three, it asks this question, and it also gives an answer to this question. Is their behavior consistent with professional and ethical standards? Is your behavior consistent with professional and ethical standards? Competency. Is your attitude towards patient, is your attitude towards work, is your attitude towards procedures actually consistent with professional and ethical standards? And finally, can they apply critical thinking when something goes wrong or outside the expected range? You have never encountered, if you are used to monitoring your fridge temperature, and you are used to the situation where it's always between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. So this day you come in and your temperature on your fridge is 9.5 degrees Celsius. Can you, as a lab personnel, can you apply critical thinking when something goes wrong or when it's outside the expected range? Can you resolve this? Can you? Because it's not all about writing that figure that is within range. How are you well equipped? Can you critically analyze the situation at hand and come up with an output that actually fits that situation? So competency questions the skill, competency questions the attitude, competency questions the behavior behind that tick on the checklist. When you put that tick on the checklist, kindly question that skill, question that attitude, question that behavior. It's not about the tick on the checklist. It is about what is behind that tick. Because colleagues, I'm stressing on the aspect of competency because we have a quality assurance bill that is almost due. Very soon, we might have it in the pipeline, whereby you will be tasked with a justification for every signature you put on a document, for every tick that you put on a document. Very soon, you'll be held accountable. This does not in any way relate to whether you are ISO or not. Once the bill passes the parliament, the quality assurance bill passes the parliament, my friends, my colleagues, we will be subjected to that. Irregardless, it will not be scot-free, whether you are in a dispensary or where. Once you make a mistake, you are held accountable for that mistake on your own individually, okay? So that is why we are saying a skill is something that is learned. Knowledge is something that is acquired. Competency can be acquired. Competency can be retained, and competency can be sustained. So competency questions the skill, attitude, and behavior behind that tick on the checklist as such. So how do we measure competency, for example? Because that is something that I've just mentioned, that competence can be measured. Competency measurements determine whether laboratory personnel possesses appropriate skills, possesses and can apply the knowledge, the skills, and behaviors required to perform specific tasks accurately, safely, and consistently. We are saying that we are asking ourselves, do you possess this skill? And if you possess the skill, can you apply the skill? Do you have this knowledge? Yes. Can you apply the knowledge? It just goes beyond having the knowledge. It goes beyond the ability to apply the knowledge in its concepts of existence as such. And this is how we measure competence. Number one, whereby we have supervisors. I'm talking of people who have actually also been deep competent. You cannot evaluate somebody's competence if your own competence is in question. So when we talk of competency evaluation, we are saying the person actually evaluating the competence of any given staff must first of all also be deemed competent in that area. It doesn't mean that once you are a manager, you directly now become the overseer of competence. No, okay? We have managers who do not perform technical work. How then do they oversee the competency evaluation of staff? So under direct observation and routine work, supervisors or qualified assessors observe staff performing tests. They observe staff handling samples, and they also observe staff following SOPs. Of course, focus is placed on adherence to procedures, techniques, accuracy, and safety practices. Number two, we might have a review of test results and records. We review the test results that we are generating and the records that we are generating at site and storing at site to make sure that they are correct and complete. Okay? It evaluates the correctness and the completeness of data entry, result interpretation, and reporting. If through evaluation, we are just trying to see what are you doing the best, what are you proficient in what is your area of strength, okay? So of course, checks of this nature, checks for transcription error and data integrity in line with GCLP data recording and reporting principles fall under review of test results and records for such. Number three, we look at it in terms of blind sample of proficiency testing, whereby we have staff analyze unknown or blinded or extremely or external samples. Okay, we are looking at analysis of unknown blinded samples or externally acquired samples through what we call the EQA or PT programs. Okay, so results are actually compared against expected outcomes to measure accuracy and reliability of you as a personnel. And when we talk of proficiency testing or blind sample testing, every staff must participate in such like testing. It is not left to the QA officer or the specific aspect or such. Every staff, as long as you perform the analytical testing in that settings, you must be in a position to actually participate in such like errors. Of course, we might have oral or written assessments. In some serious establishment, staffs are continuously exposed to written or oral assessments, whereby this actually tests knowledge of SOP, it tests knowledge of quality assurance system and relevant standard operating procedures. This actually helps determine understanding of theoretical and procedural aspects of laboratory work continuously. Of course, but this must be documented that this is how you will do it, okay? So for competency evaluation, competency monitoring, or compliance monitoring, it must be stated in your SOP that this is what we shall be doing. If you'll be doing proficiency testing for competency review, that is it. If you'll be doing written or oral assessment, you do not just wake up one day with your own way of evaluating your staff. It must be documented and the staff must be aware that, yes, this is how we do it, okay? So the key takeaway from this: competency is not a one-time event. It is continuously measured through performance reassessments, often annually or after new method implementation. Competency is not a one-time event. It's always continuously measured. Any identified gaps in terms of your competency will trigger retraining and re-evaluation. You'll be trained, you are allowed to perform that function for a while, then you are re-evaluated after a given period to make sure that you really understand or you really understand the aspect that you did not perform well as such. And if you are competent this time, it does not mean next time you'll be competent, because most of us really comply to the operation procedures when evaluation is. Competency is a continuous aspect. It is a continuous aspect. You must define the period through which you'll be monitoring your staff so that we make sure that compliance is continuously monitored. Competency is continuously monitored. So just some of the key differences we said in our outline that we'll be differentiating these two aspects, compliance and competency. With matters of focus, we say that compliance is actually focused on system, rules, and procedures. It's basically focused on system, rules, and procedures. Competency is actually focused on the skills, knowledge, attitude, name them all. Okay? Competency is focused on skills, knowledge, attitude, and whatever. So the objective of compliance is actually just to meet external and internal requirements. You have set the requirements, you have set the rules, you have set the policies. Do we have the bare minimum? Are we at bare minimum meeting these external requirements or internal requirements? Yes, you are compliant. But then competency, its objective is actually to produce accurate and reliable results. It's going beyond meeting bare minimum requirements in external and internal requirements. You are going beyond what is stipulated to make sure, yes, you have the right skill, you have the right attitude, you have the right behavior to make sure that you can actually translate that into an accurate and reliable results. In terms of verification, we are saying compliance can be verified through audits, inspections, and documentation reviews. Of course, competency, we have just previously mentioned that it can be actually verified through observation, testing, and performance assessments as such. So with regard to nature, we are saying that compliance is process-based. Compliance is actually process-based. We are looking at processes, okay? Are we conforming to the processes in hand? But when we look at competency is people-based. It's you operator-based. It's based on you as a laboratory personnel as such. The outcome of competency or the outcome of compliance is actually either you are conforming, it's actually conformance and traceability. Are you conforming to the set standard? Yes. Is there evidence? Evidence is traceability. But when it comes to outcome for competence, we are talking of the technical accuracy and reliability. At the end of the day, are you able to produce an accurate and reliable result as such? In terms of evidence, when we are talking evidence with relation to compliance, we are talking of, do we have SOPs in hand? Do we have quality manual? Do we have audit reports? But when we talk of evidence in terms of competence, we are talking of competency checklists, PT results, staff evaluation reports, very directed to people, the people handling that aspect as such. So risk if lacking, what will be the risk if compliance is lacking? The risk is, of course, non-conformities and loss of accreditation if you are accredited, okay? But what is the risk if competency is lacking? If competency is lacking, it leads to increased errors and reduced result reliability. So from even this tabulated comparison of aspects, it tells you that, colleagues, it's high time we start thinking beyond compliance. I've always said, many people do not actually agree with me, but if we decided to question the compliance in some of these sectors that are the so-called accredited labs, if we decide to question the competency, we might find out that most of these labs really raise a very serious question in terms of competency. Okay, so competency is a continuous thing. Competency is the direction that each one of us should be thinking of as we go forward in this discussion. So how compliance and competency actually work together, how compliance and competency work together, how they can be used together, is both compliance and competency are complementary and interdependent. And this is how it actually, in terms of quality management system, compliance provides structure, competency ensures effective implementation. Okay, compliance provides structure in terms of quality management system, but competency ensures effective implementation. In terms of error prevention, Compliance actually defines what should be done, but competency ensures that it's done correctly. Okay. In terms of training and development, compliance requires regular training. Okay, the standard says staff must be regularly trained to make sure that they're able to pick up. But then competency measures its effectiveness. Competency looks at the effectiveness of this regular training. Okay. In terms of continuous improvement, competency defines gaps through audits. Once we have audits, non-conformities will be raised. Those are gaps, okay? But competency closes them through skill enhances. The competence is your skill to be able to cross that gap that has been identified. So competency in its essence goes beyond compliance. It's compliance plus your skill, your knowledge, your behavior, your attitude, okay? So a laboratory that is compliant but not competent. A laboratory that is compliant but not competent may meet all documentation requirements, yet still produce inaccurate results. A laboratory that is compliant but not competent, a laboratory that is compliant to the requirements, compliant to the rules, compliant to regulations, but its staffs are not competent, may meet all documentation requirements, but they will still yet produce an inaccurate results. Conversely, a competent technologist working outside standard procedures may generate untraceable or non-standardized outcomes. Therefore, true quality requires both. True quality requires both compliance and competency. So in summary, compliance ensures that laboratories follow the right procedures. You as a lab, you must be compliant to the set down rules and regulations, because that is the only way we are able to justify that, yes, this lab A follows the right procedures. Competency ensures personnel perform those procedures correctly. Competency on its side, and I said competency is people-centered. Competency ensures personnel perform those procedures correctly. So a high-quality clinical laboratory requires both. Compliance provides structure, while competency delivers performance. Compliance provides structure, while competency delivers performance. So colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as I finalize this, you as a lab personnel, you as a lab director, you as that dedicated lab professional, I have a message for you today. And this message is this. As a medical laboratory, our purpose goes far beyond passing audits or maintaining accreditation. Compliance just gives you an evidence that, yes, you operate within standards. You protect data integrity and maintain traceability and fulfill regulatory expectations. It forms the framework of trust in our services. But that trust becomes real and visible only when supported by competency. Competency refers to the knowledge, the skill, the behavior, and critical judgment each one of us brings to every step of the testing process. We must not only follow procedures, we must actually understand those procedures. We must not only document quality, we must actually practice quality. We must not only be compliant, we must be competent. Every patient result that leaves our lab impacts a clinical decision, a treatment plan, and a life. Therefore, Compliance gives us the right to operate, but competency ensures that we operate responsibly. Compliance can be monitored. Competency must be lived. Compliance leads to accreditation. Competency leads to excellence and patient safety. Let us commit to making both compliance and competency our daily culture, not just a requirement. When these two pillars work together, we achieve what truly matters in laboratory medicine: confidence in our results, trust from our clinicians, and safety for our patients. Quality is not a checkbox. It is how we show that every patient matters. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. And Bruce, I bring it back to you. Bruce, back to you.
Hello, Davis.
Yes.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it seems like Bruce has issues with the network, but allow me to maybe help him out as he plans to come back. Thank you, our participants, for being part of this presentation today and learning a lot on matters, compliance, and competency in medical laboratories. Allow me to go straight to the Q&A section as we proceed. And we want to look at a question from Naomi Maina. No, the question for Naomi Maina is more of the KMLTTB, and I think that one needs to be answered in a different place. Let's look at Martin Juguna. He has a question, and he's saying, Mr. Wekesa, having shared this information accurately, how do you assess AI-driven lab? How do you assess AI-driven lab? Back to you, Davis.
Thank you. We always say that AI is there to complement, not to replace. Okay? AI exists to complement, not to replace. And whether it's AI-driven, there must be a human component in it. AI is there to aid, to assist, not to replace human interface. So at the end of the day, there are actually regulations and policies that recommend utilization of AI. Okay? So the question is, are these regulations that govern utilization of AI adhered to? That's number one. Number two, the biggest question you will then ask yourself is AI a replacement of human interface, or is there to give support? So if it's there to give support, you will actually go to evaluate or assess the impact of the human interface in addition to AI complement aspect as such. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Looking at our chat area, and there's a lot of chats around here. Probably we have Naomi Maina from Kerugoya. We have Samuel Otira saying it was a nice presentation. Martin Juguna, quite informative. Then we have Celestine Mulwa, very important presentation. We have Martin Juguna as well, well-articulated session. Kelvin Ocheng, informative. Laura, good and clear insight, very well presented. Shem Nyasende as a question for all of us, and it goes, if lab complies, then even the results are dependable, are accurate, and can be trusted. You can say something about this, but it's simply a compliment on what you've just discussed with us. Maybe let me add another question, then you can combine the two and maybe give your opinion. We have Davis Mulongo to everyone, and he's saying your eloquent presentation is quite impressive. Kudos, bro. We have
when we talk
anyway, just come in, because I'm seeing most of these are compliments to your presentation today. Just say something about that comment that has been made by one of our participants.
I didn't get the very first aspect, but what I had was, if the lab compliance, does it mean it translates to accurate outcome, right?
Yeah, the question is, let me repeat, Mr. Davis. Yes. The question from Shem Nyasende, it is, if lab complies, then even the results are dependable and are accurate and can be trusted. So that was the compliment that he made, and probably you can say a few words.
Just a comment. It's just a comment, but I can put more emphasis. Colleagues, we are looking at going beyond compliance. We are talking of, yes, being compliant, but adding the human aspect in it, being compliant and competent. These two things actually work together. Compliance, as I mentioned, compliance sets structure. Competency sets reliability. So we must go far and beyond compliance to make sure that, yes, with every compliance, there's competency accompanying it. Okay, that is the only way we can have reliable, credible results to our patients. Because if I think he joined us a bit late, there's something that I mentioned. Unchecked compliance does not really translate to performance improvement. Unchecked compliance, if it's just a matter of putting ticks, those ticks do not translate to performance improvement. Performance improvement is actually attained through compliance plus competency. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Most of the chats that we're getting are the compliments, and we look at a compliment and also a comment from Charles Yegon, and it says, competency and compliance must be adhered to seriously. And it was a great presentation. So we don't have so much of the questions, but then another comment from Leonard Bosco, and he's saying, thank you, Wekesa, for discussing what I preach at all times, till some colleagues think I am against QMS implementation. So far, we don't have any additional question. Betty Kanule, to everyone, truly competency and compliance must work together for success. Yeah, so Mr. Davis, we don't have any additional question for you from this area. Oh, yeah, from the chat. I've gone back to the chat and let me see if there's an additional question from Calvin Okech. There's a question and it goes, sir, can a working environment hinder compliance and competency? You can answer that, Mr. Davis.
Definitely it does. Work environment has almost 90% impact on compliance and competency. One, are you working in an environment that supports compliance? Are you working in an environment that supports competency through training, through retraining? Are you working in an environment that actually fosters discipline over areas of improvement? Of course, when you look at it holistically, you will find that work environment caters for over 90% aspects when it comes to compliance and competency. So yes, it does.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not able to see more questions for you. And so a number of comments are simply compliments on the importance of compliance and competency in medical laboratories. So probably you can give your parting shot as we wind up, but now you have all the time because we still have time before we close. But you can give your parting shot. Back to you.
Thank you, Arthur. And maybe since you are the representative of the highest office in this discussion today, before I give my closing remark, I have this to pass to the office through you. We have a current discussion that is over Facebook. Most of the time, I do not comment on matters Facebook because the discussions are not always objective driven. But we have a discussion that is related to performance aspects of TrinScreen. I believe most of us we have seen that discussion, and it is just my prayer that Arthur, through you to the council, you might have a discussion about bringing up a plenary session so that we can have a vivid discussion about some of these things, because we can see most of our members distorting information out there. You see, before you give your feedback on such like an aspect, you must ask yourself professionally, who am I? Is this reply that I'm giving a reply of a medical laboratory technologist, or is it for a nurse, or is it for a quack? Okay. So I think that is something that you might consider so that we can have a discussion to empower our colleagues who are actually undertaking this, because I believe we are better placed in a position to make sure that we give proper guidance to such like discussions and we do not leave them to go way beyond that. As my closing remarks, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am just a laboratory technologist like you. Not anything different, not anything more, not anything less. But I choose the road of compliance, I choose the road of competency. Why not you? Compliance and competency should be integrated in our daily activities. We should live compliance and competency. We should breathe compliance and competency, because very soon we might be forced to adopt to it if we do not take it willingly. These are live processes. These are practices that you might just get yourself acclimatized to so that they become part of yourself, okay? Through such like trainings, you get empowered. Through such like trainings, you get knowledge. And when you get this knowledge, kindly go back to your work areas and implement these aspects. Thank you, LMSK. Thank you, everyone, our colleague participants who are here, and I wish you well. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you, Arthur.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Davis. Before maybe I make up my final remarks and adjourn this webinar, allow me to bring you back and maybe comment on something. Alan Chaminingwa has commented that compliance needs more resources to implement. We lack these resources. I want you to give an advice on such a comment.
Thank you. You see, in most cases, when somebody hears compliance, they talk of ISO 15189. That is just one of the aspects. If you do not have the resources for ISO 159, my friend, you do not need any resources for GCLP compliance. You do not need any resources for internal compliance to your internal processes, your own processes. No resources are needed for that, okay? So let us shift our mindset from the aspect that compliance needs resources. let us work with whatever is available. Let us work with whatever is available. Because if you operationalize yourself within what you have, you are able to achieve compliance. And in that equal measure, you are able to achieve competency because you do not need resources for training. Okay? We have peer-to-peer training, minimal resources. We have, at least with only 50 bob at that given point, you can have access to such like training sessions. This is training. When you go back, read books, get knowledge. We have free webinars up there. You can always stay updated with this current information that is on the plan. So to me, unless it's ISO 15189, because that is what comes with the budget, or OSHA compliance, that is what comes with the budget. If it's internal regulations, GCLP regulations, you do not need a lot of resources for that. Minimal investment. And of course, the output is so significant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Davis. We also thank our participants for joining this webinar today so that we can have this wonderful discussion. Allow me also to invite all medical laboratory professionals in this country to our Lab Medicine Society of Kenya dinner gala that is scheduled to take place at Pride in Westlands on the 28th November 2025 as from 4 p.m. and all are invited. It will be a day that all medical laboratory officers of this country will get an opportunity to interact, network, and also get the latest information and updates on matters of medical laboratory practice in this country from our renowned senior professionals at the national level and at the international level. So we all invite you to attend. We've been circulating a link for registration in most of our social media platforms. And we've also been able to share this information via different email addresses of our members and our participants. And therefore, we urge you to reply and register and keep this date and make sure that you are able to attend. It will be in Nairobi at Westlands. So we will invite you all. Otherwise, from where I sit on behalf of Lab Medicine Society of Kenya, we thank you so much for attending this session. We also invite you again on Wednesday so that we can also come and learn together. My name is Athai Mari, and I wish you the very best today as we plan to meet on Wednesday. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.